Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I've got a amazing guest, Ryan Becker. You might not know him because he kind of doesn't exist too much in the sort of social media space, but he is running a fantastic land business. And honestly, like I've had the chat with him, and I'm recording the intro now, and it's like, man, I realized how simple of a business he runs, not in the operational side of things, but he just seems to have so much clarity in what he does, and he sort of figured it out. And in this episode, it's really, we're going to dive into sort of the mindset of Ryan and how he thinks about service. Because a lot of us sort of think about, we're just going to maximize profits here, which is great, but how he goes about it. And then we're going to dive into more operational stuff too, which is like crazy on the opposite end, talking about processes and how he goes about document. It's like super tangible stuff. He even talks about his marketing and some details in there. So I'm sure you guys are going to love that. So enjoy this episode here with Ryan Becker. All right. How's it going, everybody? We've got our guest here, Ryan Becker. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Jesse?
Good.
All right.
Ryan, where do we start? Well, let's start from your story. I mean, there's so much. I got a chance to stalk you a little bit and see what else you've done. But tell us how you sort of fell upon the land space.
Sure. I won't get too far back in my story, but did a bunch of stuff beforehand, whatever, did a little finance and did a bunch of different stuff. And then wasn't super stoked on that. So got into the real estate space. It was right around the time my son was born. I was working, my first son, I was working 50, 60 hours a week in finance. And I was like, I was leaving in the morning before he got up and getting home at night after he went to bed, and was like, I gotta do something a little different here, and I'm in San Diego, so residential real estate. My mom's been a realtor and kind of a broker here for a long time. So that I'd always been around real estate. And so that kind of cracked the door on real estate for me. So just real estate in general. So kind of got in there and started messing around with some residential real estate in San Diego. And then a roommate of mine, not a roommate, a neighbor of mine, he's a guy in the apartment complex I used to live in, like next door, took one of Joe McCall's, seminars. And I know, Joe McCall, that's ultimately the reason why we came over to Pebble, was based on Joe's recommendation. And he took one of those, and he and I would be hanging out in the courtyard and be like, oh, sorry, I got to take this call. And it was like, him doing this land deal or whatever. And he'd never really done real estate, so he didn't know exactly what was going on. And I was a little bit more experienced in real estate. And so we kind of started just like, I was like, hey man, have you ever thought about this or whatever? And long story short, we ended up kind of partnering together and going more into the vacant land space, as opposed to so I was still doing residential real estate using my license, but kind of started to do more like the Joe McCall kind of in the vacant land space. And then long story short, he and I aren't partners anymore. We kind of branched off and did our own thing, but I'm super bullish on vacant land, and I love it so far. And so I kind of stuck around and keep doing it. So that's the 3-minute version, or however long that was, how I kind of got into land.
I don't want to gloss over this fact, but I know you've been recognized as an agent by Zillow. In fact, I saw you're like a percentage there, top 2%. I think that's something very commendable. You came from finance and you came into real estate. Like, how did you end up? I know it's not land investing, but it's still, you're still running your own business. It's still with real estate. What was it that got you to be in that top 2%?
So I kind of took a lot of the business principles. So I worked at Morgan Stanley before, and I was on one of the like the top growing teams in the nation, and I was actually like we kind of built this thing. It was the main guy. I don't want to get too into it, but like it was the main guy, and I basically went and did an internship at Morgan Stanley, and that's kind of the best way to kind of get your foot in. Finance is really hard to get your foot in the door in. So I went and did this internship at Morgan Stanley, and basically spent a year, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, just cold calling, just literally like hammering out the phones. And then Morgan Stanley's got a good infrastructure of kind of leadership and all the kind of like almost like kind of like you're getting an MBA like on the spot, like, hey, this is how businesses run, this is how we do stuff. And so it's kind of a good combination of getting that like high level, like, hey, this is how good businesses are run, as well as me just like grinding my face off, like doing sales. I have a history. I did a lot of like door knocking and like literal physical door knocking. So I think having that combination of having like the MB, like the Morgan Stanley, where hey, this is how corporate America runs their businesses, as well as a little bit of more of the grind of like knocking on doors and doing the cold calling, kind of thick in my skin. But also, there's nothing special that I do necessarily. This is more, there's if you like. I don't want to keep it too much on entrepreneurship, because go listen to Richard Branson or any of these guys that are more in that space. But at least for me, this is how I kind of got into it. And so the Morgan Stanley kind of like cut me a little bit in terms of like, hey, this is how businesses run, whatever. And so I kind of took a lot of those business mentalities, sales philosophies. Like me and my company, we are service to sales. There's so many different sales philosophies, and we are so much service to sales. You look at Amazon, you look at Jeff Bezos, you look at any of these guys, and they are like customer end user oriented. Like, and I'm sure you guys at Pebble are super in this. Like, how can I best provide this service? And it gets you into a frame of mind of like having to put yourself in the shoes of, for me, like a buyer, a seller, a realtor, or for you, your end user, and like, how can I best be of service to my ultimate person? And then using that mentality. And for me in the land business, I know I'm kind of going off track a little bit here, but like it, it ultimately is, how can I best be of service to this person? It may be my service that I'm providing, or it may be, hey, you should really go contact your local listing agent. Like that is the best thing for you. And so it brings something into the conversation where it forces you to ask questions first. Like, hey, I'm not going to just blanket prescribe my business and my service for you. I need to ask questions, dig deep, figure out where your situation, where you're coming from. And then if and only if my service is the best for you, then I can be super bold in like sales and recommending my service, because I'm not just doing it because I'm trying to pull the wool over their eyes or just get that next sale. I'm like, no, based on the information I have and based on what I know about my service, this truly is the best thing for you. If you don't move forward on it, it's because I didn't communicate something properly, or you're basically being unreasonable, So that's okay. But my conscience is clear at the end of the day that I'm not just going, hey, I think really the best thing for this person is a list with listing agent, but I'm still going to try to sell them on my thing. It also, sorry, last thing, it also forces me to, I know I'm just kidding. It also forces me to continue to improve my service that I'm providing, and look at what that niche is and what that service is. Because if I truly am, I'm not just putting this blanket thing. It's like, oh man, we got to tailor our service a little bit more to accommodate for this group of individuals or whatever. So just to circle it back to where we were, that Morgan Stanley thing kind of got me into that service to sales and kind of some of these business philosophies and whatever that allowed me to go into that real estate space. And again, I don't do anything special, but I realized in the real estate space, the bar was pretty low in terms of what it kind of took to just be a good or just like average agent, like doing what you say you're going to do and kind of following through. That allowed me to be in the top 2%. But it wasn't anything too special. It was just kind of doing what I said I was going to do. was a big one. Following up.
I mean, it is pretty outstanding to be in the top 2%. And again, recognized by Zillow there. Now, I've never heard of that term, service to sales.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of described that as, how can I be best of service to somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Has that sort of translated into land? When we're here at the end of the day, we're deal making, and so when you're sort of taking that kind of an approach or a mentality, how does that translate? What does that what does that look like for somebody who comes into land? Yeah, I'm just flipping the property, and
Yeah,
I'm just deal making here.
for sure.
You must have such a different perspective on that.
Yeah, ultimately, the actions might be exactly the same. You can look at what your motive. Obviously, I want to make money and I like to make money. And ultimately, my mentality on it is if I'm providing a good service, then that money is going to come because I'm providing a service that is valuable to the seller, the buyer, whoever it is, and therefore it's a valuable service and I should be compensated for that service. But it's kind of, again, I don't want to take the money aspect out. I'm not I'm not doing this for nothing. I'm not like altruistic and do it. I mean, but having just that one little piece come first of how can I best be of service, and then that kind of covers a multitude of things because it's like, okay, my conscience can be clear at the end of the day because I'm actually providing a good service. And ultimately, if you talk to Jeff or if you listen to any of Jeff Bezos stuff or any of those guys that have this mentality, um, the money is going to come because you're very like customer end user oriented. It puts you in a different frame of mind. Whereas if you just take that piece out and you start at like, oh, I just want to make the deals. I just want to absolutely minimize the amount I'm buying or getting these properties under contract and maximize the amount I'm selling them for. That's fine. And I have nothing against anyone that does that. And again, their actions on a daily basis and my actions on a daily basis might be 99.9% the same. I just like to add that one little piece before it, service to sales, because number one, it helps me sleep at night because I know I'm providing a valuable service. It keeps the mental juices flowing on how can I best provide this service. I think ultimately it allows you to do more business and do better business, just like in Amazon, because you don't get it keeps the creative juices flowing on how can I best be of service and how can I do that. And so it allows you to kind of have a frame of reference and a frame of maybe like a moral compass kind of on like, where am I directing this thing? Am I directing this thing towards maximum profit? That might be fine, but you can run into some dead ends there as, your service is no longer providing a service. The whole point of it is just to maximize profit. Whereas if you're more tailored towards going of service, you're going to kind of navigate through those tough decisions as a business maker you need to make on the daily basis. Are you making that decision based on maximum profit or maximum service? And then again, I think the money usually, at least in our stand, the money usually follows. Also, people are very intuitive and they can, whether you're on the phone with someone or you're sending an email or you're making a podcast or you're doing a deal, if deep down your ultimate goal is to make money or deep down your ultimate goal is to provide a service, it's going to reflect in the way you talk and the words you say and the tone of voice and your body language. People are very intuitive and can pick up on it. And it comes down to that ultimate thing where are they putting that barrier up like this because they think you're pulling the wool over on their eyes? Or are they like, wow, this person really does have my best interest in mind. And, okay, I'm going to, ultimately with sales or whatever it is trust and moving forward. So that kind of, I think, comes out like subconsciously.
Yeah, I like how you say ultimately at the end of the day the actions may look the same,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's the in between stuff and that sort of the path you get there is completely different. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
can mean many things, I guess. It could mean less friction, maybe recurring business. I don't know, and like just having a better conscience at the end of the day. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
important too,
Yeah.
to know that you're actually doing the right thing. One thing I think you kind of glossed. I don't think you glossed over, but I think you mentioned is you
Yeah.
said it puts your creative juices in motion. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that doesn't get looked at a lot. Like when we're running businesses and um the the headspace we want to be in is typically, I mean, you think about it, when you first start a business, you're really
Mm-hmm.
creative, you're resourceful, you're creative, and that's sort of
Mm-hmm.
where you want to be. And when you sort of end up in a place that is more reactive, and responsive, um, things are different. Things are different, and the decisions that you make are also different. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was so interesting that because you approach it from a service standpoint, um, it constantly allows you to think, sort of in a creative way, which I can totally see that. Um, I love this because we never get a chance to talk about something like this. coming from a service perspective. Um,
Mm,
can you, for somebody who, again, who's coming into land and they're
mhm,
thinking like, I'm going to get deals, and it's refreshing to hear that, hey, we are in this for money. At the end of the day, I love making
mhm,
money. You love making. This is why we're here at that same time. But
mhm,
it's how you go about it too. Um,
mhm.
so for somebody like who may have gotten things running, and maybe they're sort of in a very I'll try to maximize profits type of
Mhm.
thing kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Maybe give us an understanding. Are there some very tangible situations, or maybe I don't know, clear decisions you've made in the past that, what, I took a minute. I took some extra time here to really think through, you know, from a sort of service perspective.
Mhm.
Anything come to mind so people can sort of digest and understand some really
Yeah.
tangible instances?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to, yeah, and I definitely don't want like maximizing profit. Like, I mean, that's business. We want to do that ultimately at the end of the day. And I'm trying to do it as well. I just having that kind of precursor and, like you're saying, getting the juices flowing. I think it's also helpful for like a sustainable business practice where if you're just kind of doing things the way that you've done and know that they work, like keep doing that. But as environments change and, National Association of Realtors comes out with new stuff, and in your county they're changing stuff and whatever, or different not different economic environments and everything. It's like if we're just stuck in doing it the same way, like that way that it's doing may eventually fail, or if we're constantly like, hey, how can I best serve that person or that individual, and again, to maximize profit on my end too, like that's where kind of the juices keep flowing. I think it's more of a sustainable business practice too, because that's your frame of reference for what you're ultimately doing, and then the money kind of follows. But yeah, to give some practical examples of that, I would say I'm going to move my camera a little bit, but I keep like our letters that we send out. Literally, I send every time we send a campaign, I send it to myself to, hey, what it, everyone gets mail. I almost said junk mail. Everyone gets mail. Our mail's not junk mail. Okay. You see any of the Agape land letters coming in, it's not junk mail. Open it right away. But I get mail all the time. Some of it's junk mail. Some of it's borderline. Some of it's from my mom, So it's like every time I get a bundle of mail, I'm like, okay, which ones am I opening? Which ones do I open without question? Which ones do I kind of put in a pile? I'm like, and then which ones do I just like throw in the trash without ever opening? And I look at the ones that I like know. And I just was talking to one of my guys. It's like, I had got this letter and I knew it was junk mail. I knew it was an advertisement. So I got two pieces of mail. Both of them I knew were an advertisement for something, like not from my grandma. One of them I opened and one of them I threw in the trash, kind of like subconsciously. And afterwards, I was like, whoa, what just happened there? Like one of them I opened and one of them I threw in the trash. I knew they were both trying to sell me on something. What was the difference between those? And so ultimately it had to do with like how much kind of like logos and like blasting there was on the front. One was from like a credit card and it just had all this like stuff on the front, like you win the lottery, or whatever it is, you whatever get 1,000,000 points. And I was like, nope. And the other one was more like sincere, kind of just like, hey, it just had the tone of like honesty, transparency, like, hey, this is what we are, we're not trying to pull one over on you, like this is kind of what's going on. And that was the one I ultimately opened. And who knows, like that's just me, that I'm sure there's a million other people out there that opened the one and didn't open the other one. But that's another where I always send it to myself and I keep it up here and I look at it and I go, okay, read the letter and go, even the verbiage in the letter is ultimately like, hey, we want to buy your property. We get to the point very quick. We're like a bad news first. So it's kind of like the service to sales stuff. We give the bat. So we do wholesaling. So we do get properties. We do purchase properties under the Agape Land name every so often. If it's like a super slam dunk deal and the person doesn't want to, do the wholesaling thing, but most of them we wholesale. So we are like kind of in the service to sales. So to your question, in the service to sales realm, from our letter from the get go, we're like a bad news first kind of person, where we let them know what all the worst things about Agape Land are from the beginning. We are not the ones buying. Most likely, we are not the ones buying your property. We're going to try to sell this to somebody else. If we can't sell it in X amount of days, we're either going to come back to you and try to renegotiate, or we're going to come back to you and blah blah. Like we tell them all the crap first. Then, if they have objections, I'd much rather them object to it right now at the front end. We can either deal with those objections now, or we can say, "Hey, no worries. See you later. Hit us up if you ever want to." We don't really do follow-up drip campaigns. Like, there's too many people out there that say yes the first time, to do drip campaigns. So we just like, all right, hit us up if you want. We're not going to chase you down or whatever. If you want to sell your property, hit us up. And so the service of sales kind of saying all the bad stuff first. We can most of the time overcome those objections first. Then those objections, if you're a bad news last kind of first person, like, or sales philosophy, like, let me give you all the good stuff, and then at the end you have a little asterisk with the fine print. Then you come off as a sleaze bag, like you're trying to pull an over on them. And also, those are where deals blow up at the finish line, where you have come to the closing line, you're about to close escrow, they see your assignment fee or whatever it is in the closing docs, and they go, wait a minute, why is Agape Land making $20,000 on this deal? And it's like, oh no, we got to explain ourselves now, where it's like, hey man, we have it in the letter, we have recorded conversation, we have told you from the beginning that we are making a fee on this deal. And no worries if you don't want to go through with it. Just consider what your other options are from this point. Like, you got to list it yourself. You got to find a realtor. You got to start over. You can't just take the buyer we have. Like, so no worries if you want to back out. Just consider what those options are. We're literally at the closing table right now. And let us know what you want to do. And then 5 minutes later, doc signed, like, and it's done. And not like, honestly, like 99% of the time. So anyways, it's not trying to, it doesn't work all the time. And sometimes if that doesn't work, then there is fault. There's a little bit that's usually iteration number one. And then if they still want to go through, we might get a little bit more like, hey, a little bit more, salesy with it or whatever. But that kind of being in a nutshell, like Agape Land, like kind of service to sales of kind of, that was a very quick overview of our process, but where that might kind of come into play on some of them.
So, transparency really plays into your, the way that you convey your service to your business then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And again, it's kind of a double-edged sword in a good way, where number one, it's, sales to service to sales that, bringing up the bad news first allows us to have a clear conscience and not think we're, doing the fine print thing on them. It also ultimately ends up in more deals closed in a higher efficiency, because we have the deals that do pass over that first hump, 99% of them make it to close. Whereas if you don't tell the bad news until later on, you're having to have all the company resources, all your title and escrow team's resources, all the resources come up to that very end. And then you're bringing 100 deals to the close. And then you're having to overcome all those objections. And then maybe only 50% of them go through. Whereas overcoming that objection at the beginning, now you're the ones that have said, okay, I'm fine with the bad news. Now you're only using your company resources to bring those through. And then you're 99% to close at the end. So in terms of company efficiency, you're much better off handling those objections at the front end. Then all the company resources used to bring those through is on the ones that are in the 99% close category, not in the 50% close category. So it's helpful on both ends,
I love that. Man, you're making me think about certain things, and it's really interesting how you phrase it as service first. And I was like, I can see that. I've never heard of that sort of terminology used in that sense. And hey, you mentioned.
Oh yeah, sorry. There's different verbiage for it. That's kind of what we use. I think Jeff Bezos has like more of like a end or a customer or client or end user. There's a little bit different phrases on it. That's kind of what we say. But anyways, there's different words on it. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It actually tied into what you just said. You mentioned Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and you mentioned Russell Brunson. Like, what are the, can you tell us some of the people who sort of follow this philosophy, and maybe some books or some resources people can check out to learn and get better understanding and more context around that?
Absolutely. I love talking about that more than I like talking about myself. I like the sound of my own voice. I'm just kidding. But I'd much rather talk about those guys and what they do or gals, whoever it is, because I'm not doing anything special here. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. So I like talking about what those people have done because they are the ones that are billionaires doing it. And I don't want to come and be like, but I've figured out this secret sauce that they haven't figured out. It's like, no. Just in terms of my business, like riches, I have to be, sorry, I'm going off top. I'll get to
No,
your
please.
questions. Hey, there's a call from Pebble. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I should probably.
No.
We haven't even started talking about Pebble yet. Can you hear that on your end?
No, we're good.
Oh, okay. Well, for those of you who don't know, I have a Pebble tab up, and we just got an incoming call from a Pebble lead. So, one of the team will handle it. That nice little tone. But anyways, golly, what was I saying? Yeah. So some of those guys. Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. In terms of, yeah, I don't like to recreate the wheel in terms of those business philosophies and that kind of thing. But also, there is something to be said for the riches are in the niches. Where, in terms of my business, I don't want to go into a space where, I mean, you can go into a space where a million people are kind of doing the same thing, but you do want to differentiate your business a little bit. So it's kind of an interesting thing where it's like, hey, you don't want to recreate the wheel. You want to kind of go piggyback off of what other successful people have done. But at the same time, if you're doing exactly the same thing that everybody else is doing, then you're kind of like Pebble. You can't be the same exact CRM as Salesforce and these other ones. Otherwise, it's like, why would I use Pebble? So you got to differentiate a little bit. But at the same time, there's going to be principles that go across the board. That's like, okay, I'm not going to fully start from the beginning. I'm going to use most of those, and I'm going to also be innovative and differentiate myself in these aspects, kind of thing. So that being said, yeah, some of my favorite ones, honestly, the one that I have like in my business philosophy is Richard Branson's. He's the Virgin guy.
Sorry, did I say Russell Branson earlier?
I think
Sorry.
he did.
I was thinking Russell
I'm pretty
Brunson.
sure you had me thinking for a second. I'm like, shoot, is it Russell Branson? I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
No, it's Richard Branson. You're right. It's
Okay,
Virgin.
yeah. Well, he's Sir Richard Branson. Oh man, I just cut my mullet off, but I had like the big old in which the video that I sent you last week was me with the big mullet. And
Yeah.
For the podcast.
Looking sharp.
Thank you. And then I literally scratched my I almost rescheduled the podcast. I'm like, no, I got a cut on my nose. I'm like, you know what? It's all good. I'll just move my face a lot and stand back here.
You're good.
Okay, cool. But yeah, just long story short, Richard Branson, he's got a great like kind of three-pronged approach for his kind of most farthest zoomed out business philosophy. And apologies if you know this, if you heard it before, but number one is have a clear vision of what you want to do and effectively communicate that vision to your team. So, plan, whatever that is, but like a clear vision of where you kind of want to go, of the business, of kind of how things, what it is now, what the game plan is, and then also effectively communicate that vision to everyone. Quick little anecdote story of mine on that. Like when I was a kid, I started working construction when I was 12 for my stepdad, who's a general contractor, and nothing against him, but he had kind of a habit of saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. Go move that pile of 2x4s over there, or go do XYZ, whatever the thing is. But he never said like why he wanted me to do it and kind of what the vision was and what the end goal was. And so because I didn't have that frame of mind, I was kind of stuck in like, oh, he said move that over there, and I would move it over there, and he'd be like, why'd you move it there? I need it there. And it was like, but I didn't really know what the end goal was. All you said was move that there. Whereas like I told him that eventually. He's like, hey, move that pile of 2x4s over there so that it's closer to blah, blah, blah. And so when we need them, they're and then it got my juices flowing as an employee. Like, oh, okay, I know what that end goal is. Actually, I'm going to stack these 2x4s in a way that make it more usable so that I can accomplish this end goal. And so when that comes to like me and communicating that to my team, I try to be very good at giving them tasks. They're very clear on this is not, I try to also be very clear. This will come in one of the other ones, but like what their role, like their daily roles are, and exactly how to do those with documented processes and everything. But when I give them like kind of like projects and tasks, I really have tried to be good at, hey, this is what I want you to do, very specific about what I want you to do, and here's why. Here's the ultimate goal. I want you to create a map of every single closed property that we've closed in 2024 and 2025 so far with the GPS coordinates. I want you to do it like this. The reason is we're going to go back and we're going to look at that map and we're going to send campaigns to every single area that we've closed more than like one property on. We're going to look at and find where these cluster areas are where we close a lot of deals. And we're going to go and do now specific campaigns on those areas. And so giving a little bit of context to that person, even though they don't care necessarily, it doesn't really affect them. But number one, it's nice to communicate that clearly what we're doing. Number two, then my VA comes back to me. He's like, hey, I actually went and I color coded them with 2024, 2025, and in escrow deals. And ones were that in clusters, I XYZ. And he did more and a better job than the original task I gave him because he had that context of kind of where I was going with it. And so the same thing with whether it's a task or, however big you want to chunk it. And I'm very try to be even with like the lowest VA on my team, like, hey, here's the direction we're headed. Here's where we're going here, and so that in their daily tasks, their decision making that they're making can be a little bit more in line with the company because I'm not just giving them tasks. They are mentally in line with kind of why we're doing this and kind of the direction the company's headed. So that's Richard Branson's number one. Anyway, so number two is hire the best people possible for the job. He's got more resources than I do, so he's going to be able to hire, MBA grads and this and that and whatever. It's like, hey, I have a very solid like core, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and me, like a 5-person team is like my core team. We have other partners, we have other whatever, but like our daily, Slack core team is like me and 2 of our American kind of like sales employees who hop on the phone with people and do a little bit more of the high level stuff. And then 2 VAs that don't necessarily hop on the phone, but do a lot of like the administrative stuff in our Pebble quite a bit. And they are great for what we have right now. We've gone through probably 20 other people, if not more, to kind of get down to that really core group. So Richard Branson's number 2 is hire the best people. And the third thing I think is for me is the most important thing is give your employees the resources they need to do their job to the best of their ability. And so that kind of takes that service mentality also to me as the owner of the company is how can I best serve my employees to do their job to the best of their ability. So rather than them being there, yes, they're there to serve me and serve the company, but it's not just me up here with like a thing and saying, hey, do this, do that, whatever. How can I best allow Marvin, Adriana, Christy, Brad, here's their role and their responsibilities. And it's clearly documented on what they do and exactly how they do it. How can I best provide resources for them to like do their job to the best of their ability? It forces you to be like, what is their job? Let's define what their job is and what can I do to give them. So rather than them in the daily Slack messages saying, hey, Ryan, what do you need me to do? It's me in the daily Slack message saying, hey, Christy, what do you need from me? How can I help you? Or Marvin, hey, how can I help you? If they're constantly saying, hey, man, I'm really needing help on this one thing, that shows a massive hole in my process. I'm like, wait, why does he keep needing help on comps? He should know how to do that. I need to do some more training or whatever that is. So kind of shifts the mentality a little bit in that service perspective of like, this is your role and responsibility. How can I like lift you up and give you resources, give you training, give you inspiration, give you motivation for Marvin to like you to continue like doing your job better and better, or Brad or whoever that employee is. So those are Richard Branson's 3 things, and it does kind of get the juices flowing on a few things.
All right, so Ryan is talking all about processes. How do you build processes, and really, he's eventually going to talk about why you should be building processes. And this is exactly what we talk about in what I call the Dirt Hacker Challenge. It's a 3-day webinar training. I call it a challenge because I'm going to push you to do things. It is interactive. It is engaging. There are things to do and things to think about when it comes to your business. So you've proven land, you've proven real estate investing, you know how that works. But now it's like, okay, how do I actually on an operational basis actually scale this? How do I, create repeatable processes? How do I utilize, set up for, what we're talking about, agents are on its way here. Just a couple of weeks ago, another announcement was made by OpenAI on their operators. There's so much revolving around processes, automations, really the framework we believe in actually scaling a business. So if you're interested in this, it is a 3-day monthly workshop that I do. You can join it once. And head over to dirthackerchallenge.com. There's one that is going to be coming up depending on when you're listening to this. It's, again, I run it live. I run it live every single month. So make sure you check it out. Not only that, I'll send you a free book and a workbook for that as well. It's called Real Land Talk. You can't get it on Amazon. It's about a 200-pager book. Tons of guests who have come to contribute to that book. Not only that, you're going to only hear this once, but Ryan decided to record how he goes about setting up his processes, his stages, his tasks inside of Pebble. And he broke that down all in a Loom video as well. So if you're part of that challenge, I'll make sure you get to that. Yes, the challenge does cost you a whole $30. It's almost like a meal, a dinner, but it's going to be the best $30. At least right now, it is priced at $30. It was a lot pricier than that when we first launched. It was like $99 or $149. Now we've downsized it to $30. So interested, you should be. Head over to dirthackerchallenge.com. We go through on creating processes, how to create, some streamline our marketing as well. If we're, handling multiple channels, how to do that on an operational basis. Also, we're going to dive into using Pebble as well. Anyways, I'll stop rambling here. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the show here with Ryan as he continues to talk about processes. I'm assuming there's a book or something out there. Okay, well,
Probably,
you guys are going to have to Google that. That's awesome. Tying into what you mentioned, processes. You have processes in place. How does that look like? Is that in the form of a document? And how do you guys sort of manage all of that?
For sure. And I do want to talk about Pebble. So I'm going to tie this into Pebble. We've talked about so much stuff. Pebble is amazing and a huge part of what we do. I know so far we've talked about my history and business philosophy, which I think is great. But honestly, all this kind of leading to Pebble allows us to do this, exactly what I've been talking about, and apply like the practical down to brass tacks, like apply these business philosophies. Pebble has been amazing at allowing us to do this. Process documentation, is literally just a massive Google Doc. And it's got a table of contents at the beginning. And, you can go through the table of contents and go, and you guys have all seen probably the podcast of the entrepreneurs who are really bullish on process documentation, and there's a varying level of how much information you can give in that process documentation. I can say, hey, send out the purchase agreement, or I can literally go through and show you how to turn your computer on and log in and find your way to Google so there's like a varying of like how granular do I want to get in this process documentation. So you've kind of got to draw the line somewhere of like, based, and that's where your audience comes into mind. Like, okay, I'm writing this for Christy based on her maybe not having worked in 2 weeks and kind of maybe forgot some of the stuff. How can I get her to the point where to jog her memory to do this? So if she's going to send out a purchase agreement through, right now we use PandaDoc. Hopefully Pebble at some point goes and does the DocuSign thing. As soon as you guys do, I'm on it and I'm going to use that instantly. But if right now we're using PandaDoc, is like, how can I jog her memory on sending that out? So in the Google Doc, we'll have usually have written out like, hey, blah, blah, blah. First, you're going to make your way here. We'll have some screenshots of PandaDoc in there. Hey, click the button here, click the button there, fill this out like this. And then usually the very last thing will be a video of like me just whipping through it real quick in 2 minutes. If she really forgets, you can go to the video. But if you kind of just need some stuff to jog your memory, some written out explanations and some screenshots really help. Our process document is constantly being added to. Also, it's very good for if we need to change the process. I don't need to go to my team and get, hey guys, remember, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm not going to remember. Nobody's going to remember. So I say, hey team, we're changing the process. The process is now this. We literally have a process for changing. We have a process for how to go about changing a process. We also have a process for how to document process. Super process nerd. But when you go and change a process, you don't say, hey guys, remember, you want to let everyone know, hey guys, this is the process. It is now updated in the process documentation. So when you go to blah, 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 this is the new process. On Pebble, the do not mail function we use quite a bit because you don't want to mail somebody who's already responded. Hey, don't wait until the purchase agreement comes in to click do not mail for that person. Wait, as soon as they respond to the letter and we have their reference ID input, to put them to do not mail, because I don't want to just not mail the people who we've gotten agreements from. I also don't want to mail the person who's responded and we're in negotiations with and we're kind of getting close, but the purchase agreement hasn't come in yet. I don't want that person getting another offer from us. We're talking about, we're in negotiations with a $5,000 offer. I don't want them to all of a sudden be like, hey, I just got a $7,000 offer. Like, let's stop mailing them as soon as they, so that'd be a small little tweak, but it needs to be notified to everyone. It needs to be put in the process documentation. And now leading into Pebble, that's where Pebble's awesome, because I don't need my team to now go with the previous CRM we were using. You can ask me what it was if you want or not. But the previous CRM we were using, who for now will not be named, and now we're using Pebble, which is also what Joe McCall newly recommended was Pebble. But Pebble has these super awesome process automations, like task automations, where I don't need to have my team go back and look. When I move it from this stage to that stage, it can, obviously you can have tasks in Pebble and it will automatically task blah, 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 these things. So given my previous example of the do not mail, all we had to do was change that automation to let the VA know, rather than from when the PA comes in to click the do not mail button. Now just move that little automation to the, as soon as the, it's, in the new lead category. Now they do that, so they don't have to remember it. It just comes up when that gets pinged into that category. It comes up in their list of tasks, and they just do it, and it's a no-brainer kind of thing. So,
I mean, I love that. I mean, you're really building a. I mean, when you have repeatable processes like this is really the key to. You could say scaling. You could say pulling yourself out of the business so you can have more time to focus on areas that you want to focus on. Whatever it is. I mean, there's just an insurmountable amount of advantages you have when you can actually processify things. I one thing I mentioned earlier was like, how do you know if somebody is over documenting or under documenting? And I have got a great tip for this one. It's when you're hiring, for those of you guys who are thinking about hiring somebody, as a founder, what I found is like, and I learned this from a book called Systemology. And so you pull away, you get as far as screen recordings, but when you hire somebody, you get them to test them to see if they can watch your video and document. You can tell them, hey, you don't need to be super granular, but there's a couple things here. A, you're vetting if they can understand your videos, and B, you're seeing if they can actually document stuff for you, because you're probably the last person you don't want to be that person documenting eventually. I mean, you've got so many other things to do. It's super time consuming, and there's a bias. You understand your steps so well that you may skip over certain things that other people may not, understand. So, so again, for some of you guys that are, thinking about processes, and everybody should, I think, like, as soon as you've proven this model works and you've built that confidence, it's now time to think about, all right, how do we actually scale? Maybe not even scale. How do we actually grow this business and like run things as like, repeatable as possible? You don't want to have to like, fire from the hip every single time. It gets draining, and you get tired. But I love all the things that you mentioned about processes, and like you really went into the detail with that. I really appreciate that.
If you want to start, even if you don't have employees or anything, and it's just you, I think it's still good to like document those processes. And you can start at like I literally just have this sitting here, wasn't even planning on showing it. But you can literally just start with like a sheet of paper and just go like, okay, what is step 1 here? And then what is step 2? And then what is step 3? Okay. So this is kind of the natural flow of things. Okay. And then you can kind of get, and if you're not super techie or whatever, like get a little bit more granular on it and just kind of get it down. We're like, okay, this is, I'm sending out, what is step one through whatever, and just kind of get it down. It'll also help you to like kind of articulate that process. And again, even if it's just you, even if you don't need to share that with anyone, it can help you kind of just in your mind articulate, okay, what exactly I'm doing something right here. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Let me articulate exactly what I'm doing here through these processes. And then, you can kind of each obviously step could be broken down into infinitely more steps. So you don't have to get super granular, but okay, what exactly is my process for sending out these letters? What exactly is my process for finding a list to pull and send these letters to? And then as that's coming out, it's going to force you to be less on kind of autopilot and more on like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let me look at it, and you can start picking little spots from it. Like, ooh, I could definitely improve this one right here. Or, oh man, I don't really have a process for when leads come in, like what I do. Oh man, I should write that out a little bit more. And it's fun to do. It's literally just I use like pictures. It's kind of boring sometimes to do an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. I like to sometimes, especially the first couple of times, like do it on a sheet of paper, and I got some pictures going and some arrows. I'm like, what exactly am I doing here? Okay, and then it helps you to kind of visualize it, and then again, yeah, from there you can kind of work and do whatever. And
There's definitely some odd satisfaction to be able to like sketch things out and map things out. So
yeah,
I totally understand what you mean by pen and paper, because I am a total pen and paper
yeah,
person as
for
well.
sure.
Hey,
Yeah,
big question here. Like, why do you, other than you being a process nerd, why do you
yeah.
feel so compelled to processify everything or document everything? What is it that you feel ultimately, what is that context? Oh, give us some context as to why.
Yeah. Um, I would probably am being a hypocrite right now and saying that when it was just me, I was not good at process documentation. So the ultimate thing that kind of cracked the door on it was, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, like having my business partner. So at the beginning, it was just us. And then when we brought our first VA in, it was like, okay, we're now like, I have my roles and responsibilities. My business partner has his roles and responsibilities. And now we have this VA, and there is a very specific way we want things done. And that needs to be communicated to the person. And I think another part of it was like, I was really gung ho about like, I don't want everyone to rely on memory. Like, my memory is not very good. And ultimately, when you have a million things going on and the process is constantly changing, it's like, I think that's the kiss of death to just be like, just everyone just remember this, blah 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 blah. Like very rarely I'm like, hey guys, remember. It's like, no, it should be like it should be documented in a way that's a specific way to do it. So it started with that kind of Google Doc, and like ultimately we use a couple things like Miro, which is kind of a way to like do like this vision, kind of like how things go, and these videos on like, hey, this is how, again, to the most very basic, like when that VA came on board, this is how okay, your tasks are going to be XYZ. This is exactly how I want you to do this. When you go and send out a purchase agreement, it's not just willy-nilly go ahead and do it. This is exactly the way I want you to do it. And so there's a few, when you hire that first VA and or you have your first person that comes on, it's like, hey, this is the way I want you to do it. And so a couple principles there is like, they shadow you doing it, and then you shadow them doing it. So kind of like you were just talking about, Jesse, where it's like, hey, you do this process documentation. Like, you do it. I'm going to smuggle all this, preconceived stuff in. That's like, hey, I already know how to click all these buttons. And it's like, so any job you do, it's going to start with a process where it's like, hey, you shadow me doing it, and then I'm going to shadow you doing it. And so that's a good way. And then having some videos, having some screen recordings. I'll take the sending out a purchase agreement as, a good thing that a VA might come in, and that might be the thing that you want them to do is like send out, send and receive and fully execute documents through whatever, DocuSign or PandaDoc or whatever the thing is. There's a very specific way I want you to do it, how you get the price in there, how the names that you put on there and what those things are. And so I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to watch you do it. I'm going to have a screen recording. I'm going to have some stuff doing it so that you know how to do it. And that's kind of what initiated it, is like, I don't want that person to rely on their memory or whatever. Like, if they forget or whatever, it's also an efficiency thing. If they have to keep, you mentioned it, if they have to keep coming back to me and asking me how to do it, not only might I get like a little bit annoyed, like, oh man, I've showed you this a million times. Also, that's taking my time. I can make a 2-minute video on how to do it. And then instead of them having to come back and ask me every time, they can go back to the video. And now I don't have to like deal with that. If there's another thing that comes up and I haven't made a video yet, okay, let me show you how to do this. Okay, now and that's how the process document became 200 pages, because it's like, wait a minute, you keep asking me how to do this. I'd rather just make a video on it, do it once, and now you can go back to the video rather than having to ask me every time. So in terms of efficiency as well, it's helpful for that.
I love that. Yeah, this was that's it. I mean, everything you mentioned here, your service first, and then your approach with processes. All this is super refreshing. The way you kind of the way that you kind of come at it. So I really appreciate this episode. There was so much that you dropped in here, even talking about your letters and how you go about your letters as well. For those of you guys listening, I hope you guys caught all of that here from Ryan. But one question I like to ask in the end here, Ryan, how can our listeners be useful to you, or be a service to you, or even connect with you? What's sort of the best ways people can sort of engage with you?
Yeah, I'm not a big social media. Like, we don't have like a Instagram or a Facebook for our business or anything like that. I would say probably the best way, if they really want to get in touch, would be to probably go through your team there, and then if they want to get you can get them in touch. I'm not. I don't. I have my personal. You can email us too if you want. Yeah, we're not super big on any type social media stuff. So I'd say we can, if you want, Jesse, you and I can get together after. We can, if you want, in like the description or whatever, we can put our email and put our website in there and stuff. Most of our clientele, most of our sellers and buyers are definitely in the little bit older age range. So that's kind of so we got a website and we got email and we got where we can send and receive physical letters, because that's most of our clientele. So yeah, I would say that. And then the service to sales thing. I mean, I'm an open book in terms of if you guys got questions or whatever on stuff. Open book in terms of you can ask me whatever you want, but certain stuff I may be very specific on the answer. Certain stuff I may be like, that's we have a little bit of a niche kind of like thing that we do, and but again, if someone reaches out to me, I'm generally pretty just like, yeah, let me help you out on that. Especially with Pebble stuff. Yeah, Pebble stuff. It's like I'm super open book on that, on how we use Pebble and to do these automations and the deal boards and the stages and the task automations, and how we use all this different stuff in Pebble to keep the business running super smoothly. It facilitates that really well. So
awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and sharing everything that is going on. It sounds like you're trucking along just happily here. Thanks again for coming on the show, and again, dropping all your experience and knowledge.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Jesse, for having me on. And thank you guys for anyone that's listening. Awesome.
Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.